Thank you so much for coming back and listening to us yet again. We appreciate all of our PCP addicts. That's what we're going with here. I'm gonna run with it. Quickly correcting podcast. You will be called the PCP addicts. If you don't like it, I'm sorry. You can let us know. Call in. What's the number again, Bob? To call
That would
in?
be 585-346-3000. Or if you're outside the immediate Rochester area, 1-866-552-1009.
Thank you so much. Let's talk about this impending childcare cliff that is likely to happen soon. During the pandemic, two major things happened for the childcare industry that we saw. Number one, they experienced a significant workforce decline as many people chose to stay home. Makes sense. Even now, it remains 65,000 jobs short of its early 2020 level. 65,000 jobs short. The second thing we see is a critical deadline looms as $24 billion in federal child care funding is scheduled to expire this Saturday. Throughout the pandemic, the U.S. government distributed these crucial grants to over 220,000 child care centers, providing a lifeline to keep them operational. However, when this funding dries up, a staggering 70,000 centers responsible for caring for 3 million children may be forced to close their doors. Additionally, the availability of scholarships for daycare tuition is dwindling, further limiting families' options and driving up costs. Now, childcare centers are encountering a new challenge. The workers they do manage to find are requesting higher wages. Center leaders are caught in a difficult situation as meeting these wage demands could necessitate tuition increases that might exceed what parents can comfortably afford. So, Lavelle, talk to me about your views on how the government should or should not be involved in providing low cost daycare options for parents in need and what you believe the fix is for this situation.
That's a loaded question there because I am a former, um, I would say, daycare payer, right?
Okay.
And this was probably my son was he's 11 now, so when he was 2, he was at the RCN daycare, and that's on South Avenue. And I don't know if anybody goes down there. It's that bill is like 300 a week probably now, plus more. So, and I know parents who are currently in the child care game. It's like a college tuition right
Yeah.
now for a lot of these kids. So
Over $1,000 a month they're getting.
yeah, it's pretty heavy. Again though, it's like you make the baby, and unfortunately, where we are today, you know what I mean. Like you gotta make those tough choices and decisions. Okay, how am I gonna take care of this kid? So in a way, it kind of forces us to go back to that traditional sense of the household. Someone within the household has to be there, present to, take care of the child until it gets to the, pre-K phase. We're already paying a lot in pre-K, where we got full, daycare. So,
Do you believe in pre-K? I'm going to jump onto a different topic here. Do you believe in pre-K? Because honestly, me myself, I just think that it's further indoctrination of our kids.
I mean, if you have the right place,
Okay.
not every pre-K or daycare is the same. You might get lucky and get, an establishment that is not into that indoctrination or more about teaching the kids. And the kids do learn a lot in pre-K. They learn how to interact with each other.
Okay.
They learn how to
So social
the
skills.
social skills, which is important. A lot of kids don't have social skills right now, because I'm not saying that this is the case for people who take care of their kids at home. Some people just give their kids a tablet and that's the babysitter.
Yeah. Well, the benefit that I know my family has had is, a lot of times in the Latino community, we are an extended family. So our grandmas, our aunts are usually always involved in the upraising of kids. Like a lot of grandmas in the Latino community would much rather give up of their time to help raise that child than to see that child go into some kind of child care center where
Right.
because they're afraid of what may happen out there. They hear the crazy news stories that comes out with children getting hurt, children getting sexually molested, whatever it may be, and they're just like, nah, I'd much rather have that child, your child, my grandchild, in the house with me. So you brought up the extended family. or the old school way of where the family would come together and meet that requirement where you can help the mother and or father where they can still go to work and they wouldn't have to worry about that child care. Because remember, a couple of years ago in Rochester, there was that mother that brought their child, a young child, to work with them,
And that child died.
and that child ended up falling into a what was it, a oil
It was a grease trap.
a grease trap. Yeah, I honestly did not even know that was a thing at that time, and
Yeah, you can see it behind any restaurant, especially fast food ones. It's like a little manhole cover.
Yeah.
It's around
Yeah.
back.
and you know, kids they're going to want to explore, you
Right.
know, so I can see that being an issue where parents then have to turn to bringing their kids to work,
Yeah.
which would be a scary thing even if you're working from home. Remember, I used to remember seeing people, you know, on the Zoom calls, and then their kids are running in or, you know, opening the doors on them, and they're like, you know, trying to shoo them out because they're trying to have a professional meeting.
Yeah.
But what about your views on, because I'm a big believer on, if you are not at the point where you can monetarily take care of a baby, you know, I'm very big on making sure that everything, all your ducks are in a row. So I knew that, you know, I would not be in the mindset. I knew I would not be in a monetary mindset to have a baby at a young age. So therefore, I it wasn't that I abstained. It was that I made sure I wore protection, right?
Mhm.
Um, but a lot of people don't. They don't think about that.
They don't, but at the same time, I think the times has changed. Just like you were talking about, folks who work mobile, remotely. Um, there's more opportunities for families that they can earn while they're watching their kids. There are delivery service positions that people can kind of do and take their kids to just deliver groceries. There's so many different things that people can do outside of just working for a specific company. All you need is a laptop or a computer, and you can work that way. But that again, it's just another way around the system versus the old school way of going into a building and then having to drop your kid off to a babysitter, and now you're really kind of um, putting yourself in a bad situation because your kid is taken away from your paycheck. Like, what's the point of even working? So, it put it like this. Like I said, it's going back to the traditional ways of raising a family. You need to have a two-parent household for that to work. If it's not a two-parent household, then the extension of the family, the grandmother, the grandfather is like, I was blessed to have a grandfather that was available to come pick me up from school and be available. So we have to kind of promote that part of raising the family so that we don't have to put so much stress on these daycares. So folks are paying what, $4,000 a month possibly for some daycares. It's insane.
That is insane. I've talked to, you know, some. It was about 2 or 3 years ago when a single mother came to me and to City Hall and was talking to me about the fact that her childcare was, you know, costing too much money, and it was not just the cost of the childcare, but how much she was paying in rent because her rent increased. You know, her RG&E increased, this, that, and the other. And I said, well, you know, you have 3 children. It's just you by yourself. At this point, wouldn't it be better to just move back home with your parents and save that money, and or get a roommate? And the thought process behind some people is that no, I'm an individual. I'm a self-sustaining person. I can do this on my own. I don't need nobody. And they put themselves in a position where they make it worse for their kids because they'd much rather go through that life issue of not being able to afford anything, not being able to take their kids out, for any kind of fun, because they'd much rather portray that they can do it all on their own and they're an independent boss woman, as opposed to just saying, you know what, I need to do what's right and go back home and have my parents help. On the other side of it, there's a lot of parents in the city who are still kids themselves, and they're going to sit there and say, you're not going to take away from my time in my 30s and 40s to have my fun because you decide to have a kid.
So I did my job. I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't need to work anymore. You know what I mean? And that just like you said though, it kind of puts that pride and ego within these people at check. Like, okay, what's the most important part? Is it your child? Is it your child's welfare? Is it your child's well-being? You really only have about, that window is from the time they're born until the time they're like 4 or 5 years old. So you got 4 to 5 years to kind of get this thing going. But even in that, like, okay, after school care, you know what I mean? So you have that going through their first to I don't know what, 5th or 6th grade when they can probably stay home by themselves. So that pride and ego from on both sides, the mother and the father. What's the problem? How come you can't work together to kind of take care of this child in outside of the daycare system?
That's fantastic. And I love that conversation because it needs to be talked about amongst our city residents here because a lot of them need to hear, us talk about it and come up with solutions as well. If you have any solutions or have any input, please give us a call. Bob, give them the number.
585-346-3000. 585-346-3000. Come and join the conversation here on Politically Correcting with Jose and Laval. We'll be right back on WYSL. Get the podcast, WYSL1040.com.
Wanna be silent,